So I'm here today in Clermont, Florida at Victory Point next to Lake Mineola. And as I said, I was going to interview and show people throughout the community that are making positive impacts. So today we're going to sit down and we're going to chat and hear the story of a city councilman here in Clermont. So I hope you enjoy the video. Let's go meet him. Councilman, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well, Joseph.
So tell me, your name, where are you from, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, first off, thank you so much for having me here. I really do appreciate it. My name is Ebo Entsuah, for yourself and for the public. I am the city councilman, one of the city councilmen for the city of Clermont. My seat is seat 4. A little bit about myself. I've been a long-time Clermont resident. Family moved here in 2003, but I actually was born in Toronto.
Wow.
So my parents are from Ghana, West Africa, and we immigrated from Ghana to Toronto, and then from Toronto to some other places in the United States, and finally settled up in beautiful Lake County in Clermont, and we've been here since. So that's how we kind of got here. About myself and my name in general, Ebo is a Ghanaian name, and it actually means boy born on Tuesday.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
So I'm guessing you were born on a Tuesday.
That I was.
Okay.
That I was. So, I get that question a lot more often than you think. But yes, I was born on a Tuesday. That's kind of the meaning behind my name. And, I've been blessed to live here for so long and continuing to live here now and hopefully raise a family here one day.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. So are you Canadian then, or?
No, so I have been a U.S. citizen since 2016.
Okay.
Was naturalized, did it the right way, and it was probably one of the best days of my life. Sitting there taking that oath and being able to, finally feel like I belong somewhere after living in a place for so long. Definitely one of the best moments of my life, hands down.
That is awesome. So, like I mentioned to you before we went on, I did a little bit of kind of digging into you and stuff, just because I want to have some sort of idea, but I also want to learn firsthand.
Yes.
I know you and your lovely wife, Morgan, there's a big Florida State University thing there. Did you guys go there? What's that all about?
Yeah, so there's a huge Florida State thing that goes on there, and it's mainly my fault. After I graduated from East Ridge here in Clermont, I received a scholarship to go to Florida State as well as a number of other schools in the state of Florida. And I honestly, at first, I wasn't planning on going there. But my dad was kind of like, hey, education's always been big in our family. So he was like, you gotta at least go take a tour or see what it's like. I went and took a tour and I fell in love. One of the most beautiful campuses that I've ever been to in the nation. Just the brick walls and just the architecture and everything they have going on. I knew that that's the place I wanted to be for the next 4 years of my life. So made that decision, got my bachelor's there, eventually got my master's there as well.
Oh, wow.
And I'm actually in the process of doing a doctorate program also. So
oh, wow.
We stay busy. But it was one of those things where I went there and I actually was able to walk onto the football team, played football there as well for a couple of years.
Wow. Okay.
So Florida State has been a part of my heart for a very long time. And when I met Morgan, I let her know, like, hey, like if you're about this or you're doing this, you got to be all in. And it's funny, she actually came from a family that was more of a UF Gator fan household. And
well, at least it's not it's not the same conference.
Yeah,
it's better than being a Miami Hurricanes fan, I guess.
Amen to that. Those are the ones I cannot stand. But yes, so she was a UF fan, but now her and her family have definitely, veered off a little bit, and they love watching FSU games. They love coming up to Tallahassee and meeting folks. So they're definitely Nole fans.
That's awesome. I actually have a sister-in-law.
Okay.
Who is at FSU,
Oh, okay.
and she's working on getting her doctorate right now.
Oh,
also.
okay, awesome.
I believe in physics. What did you go for?
Oh, so I got my bachelor's in international affairs and sociology. I got my master's in legal studies, and then my doctorate will be in higher education.
Wow.
Leadership. So it's been a long journey, a lot of different subjects, but I do what I can to learn everything I can, because in order to make good decisions, you have to have your research and you have to be knowledgeable about issues.
Definitely.
A lot of people don't realize that this day and age, but it's true.
All right, so let's kind of transition. I mean, obviously this channel on YouTube and these videos are going to be about bringing positive impacts to the community, and we're kind of in a very divided society, so we can say not only could you, but you have the ability to do positive things within the community.
Yeah.
Tell me, how did you kind of arrive at the decision that I want to go for city council? And what did that conversation look like with Morgan? And obviously she supports you in it.
Yes, she does.
How did that kind of look, and how did we arrive to that decision?
Yeah, and just for the public, if at any time you feel like you do want to run for office and you are married or have a significant other, that the first thing you need to do is talk to them and take that into consideration. It's actually funny, before I met Morgan, I had already ran for office once.
Okay.
So when we first started dating, the conversation was kind of like, hey, like, just so you know, like, this is something that I want to do, would you be on board with that? And she let me know from the beginning, like, yes, like, if this is what you seriously want to do, I will support you until I feel like you're not as happy doing this as you are.
That makes sense.
So it made the conversation a lot easier for me. And in my family forever, public service and just service in general has always been one of the number one things, other than our faith and family. My parents both came up from a very, very large household, and they've always wanted to give back to their community no matter what they were doing. So for us, I wanted to find out and figure out, what could I do to actually impact the person next to me and make their life easier? Because when you do that, it also makes your life easier. Right. So it's one of those things where it's just a positive, beneficial relationship. And that's kind of when I was like, okay, I need to do something. I want to do something. Let's try city council. And I credit County Commissioner Sean Parks to this, because I actually reached out to a number of different elected officials at a local and county level in order to see, what they do, how their work actually, one, fulfills them, but two, fulfills the people that they serve. And he was the only one who actually reached back out to me in order to, let me know, hey, this is my path, this is what I've done. If you're interested in it, I say go for it. And that's kind of when I decided to, throw my hat in the ring, run for office and see how it went. And it's one of those things where you get knocked down pretty quick, but if you have perseverance, you'll pull through and good things will happen.
That's really cool. So what was it like once you made that decision? I mean, you're going through the process as a candidate. Mm-hmm. What does that feel like? Because I mean, as we talked about before we went on camera, I did some research, and you'd think like, oh, county, city officials, publicly elected officials, like, oh, they're a dime a dozen, they're everywhere. But when you really look at it, it's a very small subsection of society that A, runs for public office, and then B, actually gets elected and serves in that.
Yeah.
So I mean, what was that process like going through the candidate, and then what was it like when you found out, hey, I won?
Yes, it's a very extensive process, and it's one of those things that a lot of people, they hear about and they're not sure if they want to do it in the first place, because especially in this day and age with social media and kind of how everything works, your life is essentially on a magnifying glass. Right. Everybody knows exactly what you're doing, where you're going to be, how much you make, what your plans are. And unless you're really good at hiding it or a ghost, everybody's gonna know. Right. So for me, it was one of those things where I was lucky enough that I didn't really have much to hide anyway. And I was wholly clear with my intentions, and I let people know, hey, the reason I'm doing this is because I want to impact change. When I first ran, I was 25 years old. One of the youngest ever to run for office in the city. And obviously a lot of people were kind of like, oh, like, you're just a post-college kid, like, what are you doing? You know
right.
what I mean? But then I started to show that, hey, I'm actually serious about the work that we're doing, and I want to make that positive impact. And people started taking me a little bit more seriously. So there definitely was, a lot of moments where I came under a lot of scrutiny just because of my age and, lack of experience, even though at the time I had been, working in DC and had learned policy under a number of lawmakers. It was still one of those things where people didn't feel like I had enough real world experience. So just to overcome that was to show that, hey, I may not be the 20-year working journeyman, but I'm wise enough to learn from that person and see their example and take what I know and apply it in everyday life. So that was kind of the experience and the journey, and that winning that council election when I finally did it was a very relieving feeling, and obviously
that it's finally over.
Yes, no, it is, because at that point it felt like I had become a professional campaigner. You know, that was my third run technically, so I was always.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was my third run technically, so I had always put my name in there, always had to knock on doors, talk to folks. But then to finally get it and be like, okay, like you did it, you know, you don't have to do it for like another year and a half now, was a great feeling. It was a great feeling. In fact, I don't tell many people this, but I actually, you know, bawled my eyes out just out of relief.
Right.
You know, just out
That's
of relief.
understandable.
You know, that we didn't have to, you know, go out and campaign again. So it was a very freeing feeling, you know, but also we knew that, you know, that excitement had to be short-lived because we knew that we'd made a lot of promises. There were a lot of things that we wanted to do, and I actually had to step out and go do that. So that was kind of just the emotions surrounding the whole journey itself and adventure. And now we're at that point where, you know, we've done some really good things in the city, tried to fight against bad policies that have come forward and make decisions that we think would benefit Clermont.
Okay, let's talk about the city council here. And again, this is just as a citizen, so I'd like to hear your insight on it. So we know Tim Murray is the mayor, and I attribute that to basically like an NFL quarterback. When things are going good, the team gets the credit. When things are going bad, you're the one that's blamed. So I mean, rightfully, wrongfully, I don't know any of you personally.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a divide with his backing. The other members of council, I'd say, in my opinion, they're quiet. I couldn't name any of them. That's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just it's one of those things. Maybe that's how they choose to govern, and that's fine. That's your personal choice.
Yeah.
But then when I talk to people in the community and I bring up your name, something interesting happens that you don't typically see in politics.
Yeah.
There are very few detractors. You have a very good reputation. A lot of people seem to like you, want to support you. And I'll be honest, it's very hard to find someone that will have something negative to say about you. And in 2023, that's very unique for someone in politics. Now, is that because of who you are? Is that by design? And how does that make you feel to know that so many people like you in this position, that they feel you're doing a good job?
Yeah, you know, I credit that just to the hard work that myself and the people around me have put in. You know, we took a lot of time actually talking to folks in our community and letting them know, hey, you know, I really want to help, and if there's a policy issue or initiative that we don't agree on, I still want to hear your input because you might be able to change my mind. And even from just a philosophical standpoint, you know, there are plenty of people that I don't agree with, or we may not be on the same political team, but the fact that I've sat down with that person, have heard their thoughts, their complaints, or their challenges, and have tried to actually give feedback and solutions to those challenges, they still appreciate me, and I still appreciate them for having that open line of communication. Because in this day and age, too many times we have elected officials who act like they are hearing everything that's going on and hearing what the people are saying, but when push comes to shove, they don't make any type of indication or any type of notification that they've heard the people out there who are speaking to them. So I mean, there are plenty of people, who would say that, Ebo is just this guy who believes these things, and he doesn't care about the average person. But then there are plenty of people who are like, no, like I've had people who have been staunch defenders of me who, from an actual ideological level, don't agree with me on many things at all. But they're like, hey, Ebo does a good job because he's able to actually listen to the people out there, get involved. And even if they don't agree, we know that the fact that we were able to speak to him, yell at him, complain at him, he listened, he did listen.
Right.
So that's the point that I really do try to make whenever I'm having any type of conversation. That, and in this day and age of social media, as I said before, you have to be at least somewhat present.
Right.
A lot of people will just go by what they hear on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. But if you actually have the proper information out there and you're doing your best to be as transparent as possible, that is what people appreciate the most. And that's what I've always strived to do. When I first ran for office, I told people, I want to make sure everybody has a seat at the table. I want to make sure we're smart, efficient, accessible, and transparent. So that's kind of what we did our best to do, at least on my end. I made sure, whenever there was a post on Facebook that, was blatantly wrong or blatantly had some information wrong, I would be one of the first people to get up there, comment on it, and let people know, hey, this isn't true. This is what actually happened. If you have any questions, you can give me a call, or you can actually call the office and they'll give you that answer. And it got to the point where in a lot of the Facebook groups, there were people who would be commenting on something or like asking a question, and then I would just get tagged. Just tag. So I'd be like, okay, like it makes me feel good, because it makes me feel that people have enough trust in me to actually go out there and give them an answer and find the answer for them and be that transparent voice for them. So, I would attribute it to that, and like you said, everybody's different in terms of the way they govern. My way may not work for everybody, their way doesn't really work for me.
So you talked about like the social media and the transparency and stuff, and you're everywhere. I mean, whether it's like you said, like on the socials, responding to people, community events, like it doesn't matter what's going on in town, like you are everywhere. Like as a real estate agent, like that's my dream, to be everywhere and everybody know who I am.
Yeah.
And you've achieved that. So now, are you in your second term, correct?
Technically, yes. It's the end of my second term.
It's the end of your second term.
End of my second term now. Yes.
So, obviously, I mean, we talked about what it felt like to get where you're going and your story to kind of get to this point. Mm-hmm. What's the future hold for you and the city of Clermont and stuff like that?
Yeah, so in terms of the future of the city of Clermont, the future is bright. I mean, we're here at Victory Point, and this obviously was built a couple years ago to be that stormwater retention. But we've got a bunch of other projects that are coming to the city. Our downtown area is starting to flourish, and it's kind of amazing because for myself growing up as a young boy in Clermont, no one would ever have thought to come to downtown Clermont. There would be no reason to. Like, why? You want to go see a real estate office? Like, no. Like, no offense to realtors.
That's okay.
But now it's amazing because you've got so many opportunities and options. You've got you got the Montrose Street Market, you've got Corelli's, you've got Roasted Spirit, and a number of other things in the Art Walk, and they're just starting to pop up and grow.
Are they paying
even
you
more.
for this?
They are not. They are not.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
You're good. They are not. They are not. They've taken enough money from me.
Free shout outs.
Yeah. But yes, no, and you've got like a number of different attractions that are coming to our area and attracting people. I mean, Lake County is such a beautiful county, and it's really important that we protect it while also realizing that, hey, there's a way that we can spruce this up and improve it. Any chance we can to improve something, we're going to want to do it and take a look at it. For myself, I've had such a great time, finishing off these 2 terms in the city of Clermont. And I've learned a lot. Like I said, we've passed some good policy, and we've tried to block some ones that haven't been good for our residents. And I actually have already filed to take myself to that next level to see if we can make a bigger impact and run for the Florida State Senate. So,
oh wow,
yes.
Okay.
So it's exciting news, and it's a lot different now because the district is now expanding from just Clermont to all of Lake County and actually a little bit of West Orange County as well.
Okay.
So we are doing our best to get out there. You talk about being everywhere at once where you can, and now it's like, oh, I got to go all the way up to Tavares, got to go back to Mineola, got to go to Clermont, got to go to Winter Garden and Windermere. So it's one of those things where even on this bigger scale, there's still a lot more good that can be done, and there's still a lot more good policy that can be pushed to make sure that we're in a good spot to advance Lake County and Central Florida to the forefront. Okay. So that's kind of the goal for the future. And we'll make sure that we do all we can to win. We're going to knock on doors. We're raising money. We're gathering folks who want to support. And we're super excited.
Okay. So let me, before we kind of wrap this up, I want to know, and this is just kind of personally for me, in your 2 terms on council, I don't want to say what have you learned, because obviously you've expressed things you've learned through all the 2. So whether it was a policy and a vote went a different way than you thought, what was something that surprised you about being a member of council?
That surprised me. That's actually a very good question.
Because I know sometimes, and while you're thinking about it, I know sometimes like, hey, there's a policy vote coming up, and you know what, you get out there, it's time to officially vote, and it goes a different way than what you fully expected or something.
Yeah. I would say, honestly, and I don't think this is necessarily a policy question, but more so just a collaboration.
Right. And that's why, it doesn't have to be policy answer.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, what's something, it could just be something, the responsibility, just something that surprised you, you didn't expect going in.
There is a lot more compromise that goes on council than what people think. But I know that there can still be a lot more. We try not to make it where it's a one or all or nothing type of situation. Right. We want to make sure that we're having those discussions. We're making sure that we know all the information. And if there's something that doesn't work for us, let's try and get to a point where we can actually make something happen. I've done my best to continue to keep our taxes low, to make sure growth hasn't been too out of control, even though some of it's inevitable.
Right.
I know. And make sure that we're giving money back to our citizens and not just taking out for unnecessary things. So that's what I'm going to continue doing. And definitely, I've always been open to collaboration, to making sure that, we're getting to a point in our policy where we can pass good policy, not just for the sake of policy, but for the actual sake of our residents who are trying to put food on their table. Inflation's hit a lot of people, so it was one of those things where for us, we wanted to make sure we could do our best to scale back spending and actually make sure that our residents were going to be in a good place. So that the amount of compromise that I've seen has been surprising, but I still would like to see a lot more.
Oh, no, definitely. I mean, there's always room for more, but it's good to hear that something like that. Me as myself going in there, and let's be honest, we all watch TV.
Yeah.
I'm not going to throw a certain individual's name out there that's up in D.C. right now, that's from the Orlando area, that is very, it's my way or it's the highway.
Yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of people, I think, out there see that and think that goes on a lot more than it sounds like it.
Yeah.
Than it actually does, to where you kind of get behind those closed doors and that my way or the highway kind of goes to the side and, hey, we're actually going to work together and those type of things.
Yeah. It's important because, it's one of those things, it's the bedrock of our democracy. We're in a republic, but it's one of the bedrocks of democracy. It's making sure you can talk to folks and get an idea of what good policy is and how we can pass it, implement it, and see what we can do for the future to improve on it.
Okay, so one last one I'm going to hit you with, and it can be whatever.
Okay.
It could be realistic, not realistic, just because I'd like to know, and I'm sure other people that are watching this would like to know. Dream job in politics. Whether or not you qualify for it, dream job in politics.
Honestly, I don't have one. I don't have one. It's one of those things where I've had a lot of people who have asked me that, what's the end goal for you? And honestly, I don't have one. I will continue to run until I feel like I can't make an impact in this position anymore.
Or you're not enjoying things anymore.
Exactly. And if at that point I feel like that's the case, I'm going to pivot, find another avenue, and continue to do good things for the people around me.
Well, I think you have plenty of good things with options with all those degrees that you're working on.
I try to be as well-rounded as possible, right? My mom and dad always told me, hey, you're gonna do something. You're not gonna do anything. You better do something. So it's like, okay, let's see what we can do, and make myself as flexible as possible.
I don't think there's a better way to kind of end our video and our chat at that point. So I'd like to thank you for the time, sir.
Thank you so much, Joseph. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Anytime, sir.